it's not built by one organization, it's all built by individuals. The first was built in the year 1991, and people meditated, they got the benefit, and they went to their hometowns, they went to their villages, and they built on their rooftops. So in the last 27 years, it has spread. People who have experienced it, they got the benefit out of it. After getting the benefit, they started building it. So this is how it has spread. So we can integrate pyramids with meditation, and we will have, it's a tool. Like crystal is a tool. Right? Crystal, if you meditate in the presence of a crystal, you get more cosmic energy. It's a tool which helps us in meditation. Similarly, pyramids are a great tool. You can use pyramids to amplify our meditation journey. So how many of you here are new to pyramids, who have never heard about pyramids? 1, 2, 3. Good. So the rest of you have awareness about pyramids. So that's good. So where's your pyramids? Did you bring your pyramids for meditation today?
Yes.
Oh, good. So we will do the second chakra now, and after we finish the second chakra, we will do crystal meditation. Okay? Let us go with the second chakra.
Okay, friends. We move on to the second one. It's called sacral. In Sanskrit, Swadhisthana, and it's located in the lower abdomen, below the belly button, or the womb area for the women. Okay, so the basic right for this chakra is about feeling, to feel. Okay, the identity is emotional, what we value. For this chakra, the value is given to emotions, feelings. Okay, so anything to do with emotions and sexuality is linked to this chakra. Okay, emotions. Emotion can actually be divided into two words. Emotion.
Yeah.
E. Emotion. Okay, so E stands for energy. Okay, E stands for energy. Energy in motion. So energy in motion becomes emotions. Okay, so this chakra is having the element of water. The root chakra, the element was earth. So this one element is water. So water flows, right? We switch on the tap, we turn on the tap, the water flows. So it's the same with our emotions. Emotions are supposed to flow. Okay, if you observe small children, if you observe a child, the child falls down, hurts himself, starts crying. 10 minutes later, he's playing, bouncing up and down. Do you notice that? So children, they flow. Their emotions are always in a flow. Okay, they might be feeling a certain way, in a certain emotional state, happy or sad, and then the next moment they move on from that emotion. But it's not the same with adults, is it? You had a bad day at work in the morning, the boss didn't like your report, you come home 10 p.m., you're still in that same mood. You're still in that same emotional state. You're clinging to that emotion. It's not flowing. So in this chakra, we're supposed to allow our emotions to flow. So what blocks it? Okay, is the guilt energy. Guilt stops you from having your emotions flow, from moving forward, keeps you stuck. Usually you notice when a person is guilty, they feel very regretful. They feel regretful and apologetic. You notice? I met this apologetic. So like, I give you an example. There was this, I was with this friend, and I was in a new city, and it was peak hours traffic, and we were supposed to get into a taxi. She was supposed to book me a taxi, but because it was peak hour traffic, there wasn't any taxi coming along. And she was apologizing. She kept on apologizing. Oh, the taxi's not coming. It wasn't even her fault. Okay, so the guilt energy makes you apologetic, and for reasons sometimes beyond you. It's not your fault, but you keep apologizing for things. So the energy that needs to be transformed would be the opposite energy. Okay, the opposite of guilt. To transform guilt, I must know what is the opposite of guilt. What do you think is the opposite of guilt?
Forgiveness.
No. Again, you can look at children.
Innocence. Let go.
Yes, innocence. Give a clap.
See, you have to think in terms of energy. Guilt as an energy. What is the opposite energy? So think in terms of energy.
Feeling. Okay, so when you go to in a court, the judge will say either guilty or innocent. Okay, so to transform guilt, we need to go back to our innocence. Our innocence to feel. Okay, so this chakra is about feelings, to have the right to feel without any interference. Okay, so in childhood, there's many things that take our innocence away. Okay, first of all, this chakra, it starts developing at the age of 6 months. So 6 months, children can sit up straight and start feeling. Okay, so the reason why they start touching objects, is to stimulate their senses, so they start feeling. So at that age, they can pick up emotions. So the emotional climate of the family directly impacts this chakra. Some people are brought up in a very loving family, they are very happy, joyful. Some people are brought up in a family that's not so positive, moody, more depressive. Okay, lack of affection directly affects this chakra because how do children feel affection from the adults? How does a child feel affection? Feels affection through touch, right? Touch. Okay, the touch has a very positive feeling on the child. They feel like, okay, they're receiving affection. But sometimes after a certain age, maybe the child stops receiving affection. Maybe perhaps a new sibling comes along, or the parents go back to work. So lack of attention directly affects this chakra. This sort of guilt energy starts seeping in. They feel like they're not worthy. They're not receiving that affection, the love anymore. They start feeling guilty. This directly affects the chakra, okay? It's an adult telling a child not to feel a certain way, okay? Because children, they are spontaneous, okay? Our emotions are spontaneous. They come up naturally. If I'm watching a sad movie, and if I feel like crying, tears feel like flowing down, I can't stop it. It's my body's natural reaction. Okay, so children, they display their emotions very naturally. But sometimes they're told not to display a certain emotion. For example, the child is happy and running, and the parents don't want any disturbance. Say keep quiet, don't disturb. Shut your voice and stop being so happy. They interpret it as, they're not allowed to display that emotion anymore. So the emotion gets frozen in the body. Okay. Human beings, they freeze. When they freeze up, the emotions also get frozen in the body. It's like stuck, they can't display it anymore. And guilt seeps in. And this starts affecting your mental faculty, because if I'm not allowed to feel a certain way, that means I now have to rely on my mind to tell me what to feel. You see, if a child doesn't feel safe to display a certain emotion, they'll start using their mind. Oh, okay, if my mommy doesn't allow me to feel happy and laugh and joyful and be laughing in this situation, then what should I feel? So they start using their mind to tell them how they should feel. And this becomes a habit, When you grow up, you start using your mind to tell you how you should feel. You go into a new situation, someone gives you a present, and you don't know how to react. You start using your mind. What should I say? How should I feel? Even when it comes to decisions, sometimes we can't always use our mind for decisions. We have to use our feelings. What we want to study, where we want to live, who we want to marry, whether we want to take a job. Some life decisions, we also have to follow our feelings, you see, because our soul communicates to us through feelings. So if this chakra is imbalanced, you go into this either-or thinking. That means you start using your mind. Okay. So for example, I like psychology, for example, but I'm forced into a situation where I don't think about what I want. I start thinking about, okay, should I study medicine or should I study engineering? My thinking becomes either or. Okay, you start thinking in terms of black or white, because feelings are broad spectrum. There are a range of emotions, so that ability gets it shuts down. Then the other thing that really happens when you're told not to feel a certain way is you start developing this thing called the shadow. Okay, we all know what the shadow is, but what really is the shadow in us? Anything that gets suppressed becomes our shadow. Okay, so I'll give you a few examples. If you're not allowed to show your anger, for example, the mother tells the child, don't stop crying, don't show your anger, you better be nice. So the child starts suppressing his anger. Okay, so what happens if this becomes a habitual pattern for you in childhood? When you grow up and you see someone else expressing their anger, you'll start judging it. Oh, this person is hot-tempered. It's nothing to do with the person. The person has a way of expressing his anger, but you've never had a chance to express it. So you start judging. You see, the shadow is something that's buried deep inside us. So when we see it displayed in another person, we start judging it. We start judging that person. So another example, perhaps I was never allowed to, I was always forced to work, study. I was never allowed to relax. Okay, so if I see someone relaxing, I point the finger and I go, oh, lazy fellow. What do I know about that person, So 99.9% of our judgments about others usually come from our shadow self. It's when we don't know anything about the person and we start judging the person. People who join monasteries, they're celibate, for example. They're celibate, when they join a monastery. And, they're suppressing their sexuality, right? So if somebody's suppressing the sexuality and they see a sexual display of someone who's displaying affection openly, a couple that's displaying affection openly, they probably judge the couple, bad behavior, you shouldn't do it in public. You shouldn't be affectionate like that in public. So that's actually them judging, it's their own shadow. So I had one, when I came into spirituality, I realized it was a shadow. I had parents who didn't really they frowned on me if I wore something that was too revealing, like a tank top or something that showed too much skin. So I noticed one day I became aware that I was judging women who were wearing it's just a dress, but if they were wearing something that I deemed was too revealing, I had a judgment about it in my head. You need not speak it out, you might be just in your head. So I had a judgment about them. How can you dress like that? You're just showing too much skin. So later when I started learning about this, in depth, then I realized it was my shadow. I just generalized it and I said, these women, they should put on more clothes. So that was my shadow. So each one of us has shadows, and it takes awareness to know what exactly it is. You understand the shadow, yeah? The feeling and according to parents' wishes, this is quite typical in some places, communities. It's like you gave your soul up to someone else. Okay, it's almost like an emotional blackmail, and sometimes it's very subtle, like the mother might say, I'll be so disappointed if you didn't make it into the swim team or the football team, or if you didn't make it to medical school, engineering school. It's very subtle. It's like and I've met people who say I really hope I pass my exams, otherwise my father will be disappointed. Are you that? And it makes me question, are you doing the exams for your father or for yourself? So they actually give up feeling, because our feelings are separate. You see, a child has his own individual identity. But this is when your own identity, your feelings get entangled with the feelings of the other person, usually the parent or any other adult. So the feelings get enmeshed. You become the enmeshed child. You're more concerned about the other person's feelings than yourself. Okay, and this shows up in adult situations where in relationships, the mother goes, okay, if my husband is happy, then I'm happy. If my son is happy, then I'm happy. If my daughter is happy, then I'm happy. Then what about her? So she has put her happiness into someone else's hands. And it's very subtle. Some people don't realize it. They think that they're they're like this grand person that's taking care and being considerate for the others. But no, it's actually what has happened is you have become the enmeshed adult. Okay? So there was this guy that I met, and he was in his mid-30s, and he was looking to settle down. So when I asked him, like, what are you looking for in a woman? And his father had passed away, so he said, I really would like a wife who would be able to take care of my mother. So that, what that meant was, his mother's feelings were more important than what he felt about the relationship. So you see how it manifests? It's very subtle sometimes. The person doesn't even realize that their feelings are so entangled with the other person. Yeah? Okay, when pleasure is denied, okay, children, they are expert in having fun, right? A child is always having fun and seeking pleasure. So when pleasure is denied, like the parent says, no, stop here, the child is asking for another chocolate, another toy, and then the parent goes like, no, or they deny it. So then primary pleasures don't get satisfied. The child actually starts feeling guilty to ask for another one. Okay, children, they naturally seek pleasure, but if you stop them or you deny them, they feel guilty to ask. It becomes like part of their mechanism, they feel guilty. So when primary pleasures are not met in childhood, you didn't get chance to play, for example, your mother stopped you, okay, enough, playtime is enough, stop. Because children have their own mechanism, the body has intelligence to know when to say, when to stop. If you give a child too much of something, they can actually on their own tell you, okay, mommy, I think I've had enough, or I've had enough. So when you stop it for them, when a parent interferes, then the primary pleasures don't get satisfied. So this leads to cravings. Cravings can be anything, okay? It's just something that makes you feel like you want to go for it. It can be food, drinks, sex, anything that gives you a thrill. And it usually comes in an instant, feel like having spicy food, feel like having ice cream, so it's a craving. When it's beyond your control, it becomes an addiction. Okay? An addiction is something that the body can't control, so it can be anything again. It's like the woman that keeps shopping, she's already got 20 handbags, and then she sees a sale and she's like, I need another handbag. So these are examples of cravings. Sexual abuse and rape. Any act of sexual abuse, molest, even a child, if it's children are naturally, sometimes they are not wearing clothes, and an adult actually can shame them. Oh, why aren't you wearing clothes? Go put on your pants, put on a dress, wear your clothes. So this is also an act of sexual abuse, because the child doesn't understand, like, starts feeling guilty, guilt seeps in. So let's look at deficient. When this chakra is deficient, that means there's very little energy, okay? The energy, the feeling center is no longer in balance. You actually can't feel. Okay? What's the way to teach children to feel? How you teach a child to feel? It's actually a process called mirroring. To teach a child to feel, you use mirroring. So if a child is displaying a certain emotion, you mirror that emotion and you teach them the word to identify that emotion. A lot of children know how to identify their actions, because actions are easy, okay? I'm standing up, I'm sitting down. But very few children know how to identify feelings. Okay, so the best way is mirroring. You mirror, the adult mirrors the child's feelings and speaks. It helps the child to identify, so that after a certain age, they can, when they have learned a little bit of vocabulary, they can actually on their own say, Johnny is feeling sad. Johnny is feeling this. So they can speak their emotion. So when it's deficient, this person lacks feeling, desire, passion. Passion comes from this chakra. Passion to do things, when you get out of bed in the morning, there's this passion to continue with your day. Okay, when feelings are very low, EQ becomes less, very low, right? Social skills get affected. When you don't want people to understand, to know how you're feeling, you sort of push them away. So boundaries become very excessive, because you can't feel, and you don't want anyone coming close to you to trigger that, because you can't explain your own feelings, you can't identify it. So when feelings become frozen in the body, the body actually becomes very rigid. You notice some people, they actually walk, the way they walk, it's like the body is very rigid, their movements very rigid. Even the attitude becomes very, very rigid. It's like black and white. Remember, black and white, either or thinking. They deny themselves pleasure. Pleasure comes from this chakra when you go for healthy pleasures. And then sexual feelings are diminished. Some people actually have a fear of sex, fear of intimacy. You know, they can cover up. I've met women who say, oh, I like being independent. You know. But actually, if you look deep down, they actually have a fear of intimacy and sex. Excessive. So excessive means these people are chasing emotions. They are using emotions to chase for emotions. They are seeking emotions. They are so unfulfilled that they are seeking it. Okay, so these people are ruled by their emotions. Remember the example, emotions need to flow, okay? They flow. 1 minute you're unhappy, okay, you witness it and you move on to the next, go back to your present moment. But these people, they hold on to their emotions. So if you had a bad day at work, you know, you come home, you're still holding on to that emotion, okay? And then they become very oversensitive. And then making a decision based on an emotion, sometimes it's like an impulse decision. You know, it's the man who comes home, he had a bad day at work, and then he's supposed to bring his family out for dinner, and then he cancels. No, we're not going out for dinner, we're not going out for the movies. So making a decision based on your emotion at the, you know, at the moment. These people, they can't form boundaries. You know, if someone is having an emotion, displaying some emotion, we shouldn't be affected by it. You know, in a relationship, you know, if the husband comes home and he's feeling sad, you know, for example, he's feeling upset about his job prospects, you know, and then the wife, she also feels upset. You know, she absorbs the husband's emotions and it affects her. So when you don't have a clear boundary, you sort of take on other people's emotions. You know, if someone is in a bad mood, you take it on to yourself and you absorb that emotion and you become that. Okay? So these people are clairsentient. Being clairsentient means you can feel other people's emotions. It's perfectly okay to feel another person's emotions, but you should have a boundary. You should be able to form a boundary. Okay? Your emotions is your stuff, and you're centered with your own emotions. So in relationship, this leads to codependency. It means you're dependent on other people emotionally, and these people are usually quite manipulative. Okay, emotional blackmail is like it's very subtle, but it becomes part of your behavior pattern. Okay, so many examples of this. You know, when you're not happy, the wife is not happy, and she manipulates so that the husband does something for her, or the other way around. You know, emotional blackmail. And then pleasure addict. These people, they seek a high. They're seeking high on their emotions. They're seeking the intensity of emotions. So pleasures, all these pleasures give them that, addictions give them a high. You know, the guy who's addicted to drinking, for example, it gives him a high. For that moment, it gives him a high. So they become pleasure addicts. So when this chakra is in balance, you actually know how to read your emotions. A lot of people don't know, some people don't know how to read them. They just know whether they're feeling happy or sad. But emotions have many shades. They're very subtle. You can learn how to trust your feelings, know what is your true feelings, and EQ becomes good. You know, if you can identify and relate to your own emotions, you can relate to other people. You know, someone's loved one passed away and he's sharing with you the story of his loved one passing away. You know, if you are balanced yourself, you can actually relate. You become relatable. You don't run away. Someone with a deficient second chakra would run away from the situation. Emotional boundaries are healthy. Okay, emotional boundaries between opposite sex as well. Between the different sexes is healthy. Sexuality is healthy. Pleasure and enjoyment can be approached in a healthy way. Okay, it's a middle part. You don't overdo it or you don't underdo it. Don't deny pleasure, but you don't overdo it. And there's a passion for life. So to understand this chakra, we look at our emotions. Are we frustrated in general, or are we fulfilled? Can we express our feelings and our desires? Okay, are we in touch with it? Okay, some people they become like a pressure cooker. They just all emotions are just flowing out. Okay, they don't really know how to express it in a healthy way. And then shadow. There's so many shadows that we probably are not even aware of. And then approaching work life, and then intimacy also. Okay. So I'll give an example. So for example, I don't know how I'm feeling sometimes, and then some people they hide. So if it's deficient, the chakra is deficient, that means I hide. Someone asks me, "Oh, how are you feeling?" I just go, "Yeah, good." Put on a mask. I'm hiding. I might be in a terrible state, but I'm hiding my feelings. So it came from my home environment. And then pleasure, I deny myself pleasure. That means what happens when you deny yourself pleasure? You end up overspending on your cravings. Okay, so I know this guy, he likes playing golf, but then his wife doesn't really like him playing golf. So he feels guilty. So he plays once a month. And he never really feels satisfied. Because when guilt comes in, you can't enjoy what you're doing. You always feel guilty. So he couldn't enjoy his golf game. So he started playing once a week. So from once a month, he started playing once a week. Still no enjoyment, because at the back of his mind is always this feeling of guilt. So as he's playing with his friends, he's not enjoying the game. So from once a week, then he tried playing 2 times a week. So guilt always is an obstacle to true satisfaction, true enjoyment of your pleasurable activities. So these are the physical disorders, again related to this part of the body. Anything to do with the reproductive organs, urinary tract system, menstruation for women, low back pain, sexual dysfunction, even deadened senses. The senses are not alive. Okay, so we have to learn how to transform this energy, okay, from guilt, coming back to our innocence. Okay. Any questions? Yes?
You talked about this child cravings.
Yeah.
So sometimes they want to eat a lot of junk food.
Yes.
So as a parent, you need to stop them. But is it stopping their emotions? What is it?
You can explain to them what's the benefits and what's the unhealthy result, the outcome of eating too much junk food. But some parents, they actually stop the kids in an authoritative way, without any explanation. So we have to treat children with kindness and sensitivity. So it's when
Explain the reasons.
Yeah, explain the reasons, and you will notice on their own, the children can actually tell you, I've had enough, because I've observed that in a child, where the child actually told the mother, after eating quite a bit of candy, she told the mother, I have enough candy for today. Yeah, and then her interest in that particular candy just waned off. On his own, the interest went away. Yeah, experiment. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll learn how to integrate this chakra.
I can see you're all frozen. What's happening? Let it flow. Let it flow. See, this chakra is very important, right? Because it deals with your emotions, and emotions are very strong. And we thought the first chakra is, wow, it's really too much. Then it's going to the second, it's hitting a deeper nerve. And this chakra is all about pleasure and feeling guilty. And most of the people, they act subconsciously or unconsciously. They go through a cyclic pattern based on this emotional blockage. The more they feel guilty, the more they cannot be authentic. Right? So first we need to understand the energy of the guilt. Why the guilt energy comes through? What is the fundamental of the guilt energy? So first we'll discuss about the guilt energy, and then we'll come to this chakra. To begin with, how many of you identified with this chakra? Like either deficient or excessive, Very few hands. Perfect. Good. How many of you feel you have a perfect emotional balance?
I have gained.
You have?
I have gained recently.
You have gained perfect.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Sorry to.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
I will say.
It's okay.
a
Towards
very
the end.
yeah.
Towards the end. we'll see. Okay, let us finish. Okay. There are a lot of things to understand, right? So definitely we'll speak towards the end. Battery is running low for some reason. Okay. This fellow is going through emotional disorder.
The lower back pain.
It's okay. Thank you. There's a loose connection. So first, let us understand guilt. What is guilt? Can anybody say what is guilt?
You feel bad about something that you've done.
Sorry?
Do you feel bad with yourself about something that you have done?
Yes. So, is guilt self-created or it's coming from outside? So, that much you're all clear. So, guilt is self-created. Now, why the guilt comes?
You have an urge of doing something and something is stopping you.
For you to learn something. For you to learn something.
No. You have challenges to learn something. But guilt, why the guilt comes in the first place? What?
Your moral belief is against your actions or something.
Yeah.
Cannot
So
control
you are
it.
coming closer to the answer. So in other words, you are...
have something the other person doesn't have that.
Right?
No. Okay, let us go back to the question. Let us think in very simple terms. Why does the guilt energy come in? Or in other words, why do we feel guilty?
Because you're trying to stop yourself from doing
Because you
something
have
which you
something
perceive as
wrong.
being bad.
You've done something wrong.
You
Yes,
think
you
you've
are-
done
Yeah, that's
something.
So
You
you are
think
coming
it's
very
wrong.
close to the answer.
You're doing something against your own belief system, like we are thinking what
Okay.
is right, what is
So,
wrong.
in other words, who determines what is correct, what is wrong?
You
yourself.
Yes, more than
Based on?
and the system's beliefs.
Okay, so the very energy of guilt is because, as you said, you felt you have done something wrong. But again, who determines what is right and what is wrong? So, on what conclusion, what act made you to feel you have done something wrong? Let's go a little deeper. What act made you to feel you have done something wrong? On what basis you concluded you have done something wrong?
Could displease somebody.
Judgments from others.
Yeah, you were a good round of applause.
fearness.
Your answer is partly correct. Partly correct. Judgment is correct, not from others. Self-judgment. When you judge yourself, okay, so this judgment, the energy of judgment, you are judging yourself, and this judgment energy makes you feel guilty. Okay, so this is the root cause. Unless you go to the root cause, you cannot transform that energy. So the energy which creates the guilt is judgment, self-judgment. Jesus Christ said, judge ye not. Full stop. He didn't say one word less or one word more. Judge ye not. So most of the people, they understand, don't judge others. But it includes judging self, self-judgment. We all go through a lot of self-judgment. Isn't it so? We all go through a lot of self-judgment. I'm not worthy. I'm not that good. I don't think I deserve it. I'm not that capable. I can't do it. So you are judging yourself constantly 24/7. So as long as you are judging yourself, you are stuck in the guilt energy. And if you are stuck in the guilt energy, your second chakra is totally in imbalance. And as a result, now you understood this guilt energy. Now let us see the consequences. You would have seen certain aspects. But there are some major things which we have to discuss in detail. Can you see this picture? Can you see who is the victim here? How many of you say child is the victim?
Being mother will feel really bad about herself later on in life. But she made her.
You are closer. But they both are victims.
Both are victims.
They both are victims. She is the victim of her own past. She is the victim of her own past.
She's creating her.
You see how terrible it is. She is appearing like very angry. She is also emotional. She is also emotional and she is also emotional. Can you see that? They both are having a great depth of emotion. They both are victims of their own second chakra imbalance. And frozen emotions, normally, you see, we don't know we have a frozen emotion. Sometimes that is a problem because the fears are little easier to identify, but emotions are little more deeper. And our frozen emotions are very, very difficult to identify. So we need a lot of awareness. We need a depth of awareness to really understand your frozen emotions. Either are thinking, either he's good or he's bad, that's it, full stop. This is how the people classify. Either he should be a good person or a bad person. There's nothing in between for them, either or. And most of this time, you know, when a child goes through this kind of an emotional blockage in the childhood, as they are growing up, they don't live for themselves. They become enmeshed child. So let us go into the enmeshedness of this child. In most of the Asian countries, they have this problem. Even in the Western countries, they have this problem. But in Asian countries, there is more. Right from the childhood, the parents keep on brainwashing. Okay? So the parents, they don't openly speak, but they emotionally, they do a blackmail. Okay? They make sure, unless the child gets a good first mark, so they are not happy. So they will do that. And this persists. You have seen that joke, right? What Navneeta said. This is true. All the arranged marriages are based on that. Unfortunately. And the guy is happy as long as the mother is happy. And the same thing, the girl is happy as long as her parents are happy. So they go into a mutual exploitation. And this enmeshedness creates a very unhealthy boundaries. They never live life for themselves. They always live life for others. This is a very deeper subject. You know, it's a bit hard to accept, especially for the Indian community. It is very, very hard to accept. They say, okay, I live for my husband, I live for my children, but they never say I live for myself because they're enmeshed. And again, it's the same thing. The children repeat the same pattern. So for generations and generations, they get enmeshed. So they don't live their own authentic emotions. Sometimes they forget what emotions they are going through. Because they're enmeshed, they cannot identify their emotions. They normally relate with others' emotions. In a family, if one person is sad, every person is sad. Can you relate to this? You're all frozen. Just go with the flow. Just have the lightness. If you don't have the lightness, it's going to hit you very hard.
Yes, it will be there. The mood is carried out throughout the family. If a head is not happy, everybody has to change their mood.
Yes. And it happens in husband-wife relationships. It happens with father, son, mother, daughter. It happens in every relationship. They don't know. They are not even aware they are enmeshed in the first place. That means, the word enmeshed means they don't have a clear identification of emotion for themselves. Their emotions are always linked with others' emotions. So that means they are not living for themselves. They have a codependency. If all the people who have this enmeshed problem, they create codependencies. Do you understand what is codependency? So they create these codependencies. And that really shakes your chakra. So that means you cannot take a decision on your own. You're always codependent for all your own decisions. So this is something we need to look deep in. And unfortunately, most of the children, at least in my generation, they always choose the subjects which makes their parents happy. Especially in the state which I come from, Andhra Pradesh, there's a very funny situation there. You know, unless you are a doctor or an engineer, you are not respected.
Also, you are not considered as educated.
If you are not a, if you are not a doctor or an engineer, then you are left over. The defective piece. They don't even consider as a human. You know, so this society, this thinking comes from the society. So the parents, subconsciously, they have this emotional expectation from the child. If the child didn't go through the engineering or medicine, the parents feel very sad. And the child perfectly knows the parents are feeling sad. So the child does the things to please the parents. I come into this category. I studied engineering because my father wanted it. He never asked, but I know he wanted it. So this emotional, this enmeshed child is something you need to look very deeply into it. If you are in this category, then you are an emotionally sensitive person. That means you cannot see clearly what is good for you, why certain things are happening for you. You cannot take any bold steps in your own life. You are always codependent for all your decisions. And you cannot stand strong on yourself. You know, you cannot stand on your feet saying, this is what I want. They cannot step up. They always have a dependency. They are people pleasers. They always try to be nice. You know, they just want to make sure everything is fine. And these people, if they have any bad moods, you know, they get stuck for a long time. As the water flows through the river, you know, the emotion comes and the emotion goes. Just like a child, you should always take the example of a child. Especially when it comes to second chakra, you should always take the example of a child. You know, one of the greatest words of Jesus Christ, unless you become a childlike, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. Have you heard of this? Unless you become a childlike, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. So becoming a childlike means what? You become a childlike because the child represents innocence. And the innocence, the very quality of innocence is your nature. When you are a child, we are all grown up adults, but you are also a child once upon a time. Yes or no? You are also a child once upon a time. So you are innocent once upon a time. What happened to that innocence? That innocence is always there, but a lot of dust and has been accumulated. So you just need to remove all those. When you remove all those things, your very nature is to be innocent. Your core, your very nature of your soul is innocence. So we need to work on ourselves. Unless we work on this chakra, we cannot enter the kingdom of God. Forget about all those meditations and everything, you know. This is too... This is the real work you need to do. If you are meditating and if you are not aware of it, okay, you close your eyes for 1 hour, observe the breath, okay, I'm a great meditator. You work on certain aspect of it, but this needs a deeper understanding. This needs a really deeper understanding. So, let us go back to this. The shadow self. The shadow self is also something very deep we need to understand. How many times we judge others? All the time we judge others. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my neighbor, my boss. All the time we keep judging. You know, somebody is arrogant and somebody is not kind and somebody is jealous. So it's easy to point blame on others. So remember, my dear friends, whenever you are pointing blame on others, there is a shadow aspect. Yes, he is arrogant, but what is your problem? Why does it bother you? Because there is something inside you which bothers. You know, somebody says, he's too rude. He's too rude. Yeah, he's rude. What is your problem? You have no problem with it. But when you're saying he's too rude, you are judging him. That means you definitely have a problem inside you. Because you have a problem inside you that is disturbing you, and because that is disturbing you, you are judging him. So all your judgments comes from the shadow self. You see, you don't know anything about yourself. You judge yourself. Do you know anything about yourself? Do you know who you are? Do you know where did you come from? Do you know why you have come in the planet Earth to the first place? Do you know what is your purpose? Do you know what is death? Do you know what happens after death? Do you know where will you go after death? Do you know anything about yourself? Nothing. You don't know anything about yourself, you keep on judging yourself. The same way, you don't know anything about another person. Because to understand another person, you need a Himalayan amount of data about him. You don't know anything about the other person, you judge the other person. So whenever you are judging another person, that gives an opportunity for you to look into your shadow self. All the times, whenever you are judging, you are having a shadow. Anything you judge, you have a shadow aspect. Now some people have a belief system, money is not good. Let us speak more practical. You are living in the financial capital, London. Money is not good. Money is against spirituality. Not for you, because you charge a lot of money, so not for you, but for many people. So they have this pattern. So it's coming from their shadow self, because deep down they have a shadow within them. They have to look into themselves. What is that which is creating that judgment? Right? You know, for example, you see the people who are celibates, mainly the people who are celibates, they always judge. They always judge. If somebody is intimate, their whole internal being is boiling inside. Because they suppressed sex all the time, and when somebody is having an intimate moment, their internal being is boiling, and they judge. It is coming from their inside shadow. Whatever you suppress in your childhood is coming out as shadow. Anything you suppress. So, people, you know, there's a lot of moral policing happening in certain countries. You know, there is a lot of judgment. How a woman should be, how a woman should not be, how a man should be, how a man should not be. All these are coming from the shadow self. You have to look very, very deep into yourself. And how do you work on it? Now you know you have the problem. You understand perfectly well, this is the area you need to work on it. Now what to do?
Meditation.
Stop judging.
Meditation is universal. Okay? As per the formula I have given, without meditation, forget about transformation. Okay? Along with meditation, you need something else. For example, in the root chakra, along with meditation, you had a tool. The tool is face the fears. Yes or no? Stop giving fears and face the fears. So that's a tool which you implied on the first chakra. So what you need to do on the second chakra? Meditation is universal.
Let go.
Stop judging.
Stop judgments and
Let go.
how can you let go?
Acceptance.
You let go your past. Start forgiving. Start being ease with yourself.
Start being ease with yourself. Okay, good. So, see, you all know the answers. I told you in the beginning. You all know the answers. Come on, next. What else to do?
Acceptance.
So challenge your shadow.
Challenge your shadow. How do you challenge your shadows?
By meditating.
So that much you have perfectly understood. There is no other way out except that. There is no answer, that is the final answer. Okay. So this second chakra, which is like the emotional thing, see, I'll tell you something. In the meditation, if you're having thoughts, it's easy to cut the thoughts and come back to breath. But when you are meditating and you are feeling a lot of anger inside you during the meditation, or you're feeling a lot of agitation inside you, or you're feeling a lot of jealousy inside you, if that emotion comes up, what you do?
Forgive.
Just
Forgive.
let it flow. Let it flow.
Let go and
Let it
Let go.
Let
You
go and
Don't
forgive.
stop it.
You be a witness. You be a witness. You have to detach from the emotion first. When the emotion becomes part of you, it becomes very, very difficult to work on it. So you have to detach your emotion first. So how do you detach the emotion? You have to get into a witness mode. unless you can able to witness deeply, you cannot detach your emotion. And by witnessing your emotion, you are detaching. And once you start witnessing, then the emotion starts flowing. Until then, it is frozen. So once you can able to witness and start detaching, the emotion starts flowing. Okay? So in meditation, it happens. In the beginning of meditation, only the thought comes. But if you go into deeper states of meditation, all your hidden emotional blocks also will come up. It's like the water. When you heat the water bubble comes to the surface and bursts and disappears. Just like all the hidden emotions will come up. And it is good it is coming to the surface. The more you are doing meditation, the more you receive the cosmic energy, the more it is pumping out all the hidden emotions outside. So you need to be in a great witness mode. When you are witnessing and let the emotion let go. So you are witnessing, there are two things at the time. You are witnessing your breath and at the same time you are witnessing your emotions. And the most important thing is you are not judging yourself. You are not judging yourself, you are allowing the emotions to pass through. No judgments, just be a witness mode. Okay? You have to be very, very kind to yourself. The most important point to remember when you are working on the second chakra is, you have to remember this statement. Guilt is like a poison to your soul. Guilt is a poison to your soul. If you are feeling guilty, that means you are poisoning your own soul consciousness. Your soul contracts and then it goes into a great depth of poisoning if you are feeling guilty. Any guilt, whatever you have done, anything you have done, whatever might be the guilt, the moment you identify it, you have to let it go. Okay? Now this is where you need to bring in the spiritual understanding. Why we start feeling guilty? Because we feel we have committed a mistake. Right? So, for us, it is a mistake. Okay, what if you committed a mistake? You can learn out of your mistakes. So if you stop judging it, then you look into the bigger picture, you can learn out of your mistakes. When you learn out of your mistake, the same act, what you have considered as a mistake, will never be a mistake anymore. That will be your learning lesson. That will be your learning tool. So you will have gratitude for the same mistake. For example, you have committed a mistake. If you start judging, then you go into a guilt trip. But if you don't start judging, you understand the bigger picture. Everybody learns through mistakes, by committing mistakes. It's a natural learning process. So yes, I have done the mistake. You accept the mistake. And after accepting the mistake, you learn from your mistakes. And the moment you learn from your mistake, the same mistake, you will have gratitude. For the same mistake, you will have gratitude. Because of that mistake, you have learned something beautiful. And that is a soul expanding process. When you feel guilty, that is a soul contracting process. It's a poisoning. This is where you need to bring in your spiritual understanding. Is it clear?
Yes.
So the first, let me complete. So the first is you need to understand how the guilt works. And you can do as many mistakes as possible, provided you are learning from the mistake and you are not repeating the mistake. If you are not learning the mistake and you are committing the same mistake again and again, then you have to go through a guilt trip. But the moment you are aware, you will learn from the mistakes and you will not repeat the mistakes. So to have that awareness, you need meditation. Okay? So along with meditation, you need to have the spiritual understanding that we learn from mistakes. You have to accept your mistakes. Yes, I have committed a mistake. You accept it. And also feel happy. There is a lesson to be learned, and you learn the lesson, and you will not repeat the same mistake again. So that's the process of soul growth. The soul expands, so soul growing. So that's number one. And number two, you have to stop every possible judgment, judging yourself and judging others. Whenever you are judging another person, that means you are stuck in your second chakra. Any kind of judgments, if it is bothering you, you have to look into your shadow aspect of it. And number three, you should have a very clear, healthy boundaries. If another person, for example, we both are living together, she is going through an emotional trip. So I have to respect her emotions. I don't need to get involved myself in that emotion. Give a healthy boundary, let her work on her emotions, and I don't need to change my emotion because of her emotion. You see? I don't need to change mine. I'm feeling happy. I had a very beautiful day at work. I came back. I'm very happy. She had a bad day at work. She comes home. She's upset. I'm happy. Now the more I'm happy, the more that will make her upset. Yes or no?
Yes.
If she is emotionally enmeshed with me, the more I'm happy, the more it will upset her. And the more I know it's upsetting her, the more I'll be happy. So it's a real enmeshedness. But if suppose we have a healthy boundaries, if suppose we know, we understand ourselves, emotionally we are balanced, we have a healthy boundary, we respect each other. Okay, you had a bad day, take your time. Okay, I respect your space. At the same time, I don't need to feel bad. I will have my own space. But if you have a healthy boundary, the beauty is your emotion cannot stay for a longer time. You know, just like a child, it passes. So this is something very, very important. And also you need to look into your pattern, your behavioral pattern. You know, whether you are into excessive, whether you are an addict. Especially the sex comes in under this chakra. Okay. In the Eastern world, they repress sex. There also second chakra is damaged. In the Western world, they overdo the sex. There also second chakra is damaged. So sex represents a pleasurable act. Actually, there is nothing wrong in sex, as long as you are having a healthy sex. If you are having an emotional bond between two people, and you respect each other, and you accept sex is a way of pleasure, so then that's perfect. But when you are overdoing it, when you are doing it in excess, that means you have a second chakra excess. If you are avoiding altogether, that means you have a deficient second chakra. You know, some people think it's a great thing if you are not interested in sex. You know, I'm very religious, I'm not interested in sex. No, your second chakra is deficient. So that means that's why you are avoiding all the feelings and emotions which is associated with the sex. So you should find yourself in balance. Are you in balance? At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? To come back to the balance. Because unless it comes to balance, the energies cannot flow. And more you are coming into balance, more and more your life is transforming. You are into the self-realization process, self-transformation process. So sex is one area you have to look into, how it is in. And the other area is about your addictions. Your cravings. You know the difference between cravings and addictions? Just before she said. Cravings and addictions. The cravings, when it becomes uncontrollable, it becomes your addiction. Okay, so whenever you are having a craving, you look into yourself. Is the craving a natural thing? Or you are desperate? You look into the desperateness. So then you can look into the deficient or the excessive nature. And how do you work on it? Again, how do you work on it? How do you work on it? Just now we discussed before. First be aware of, give her a good round of applause. You know, she has a perfect answer. First be aware of that. Identify you have that issue. If you can't identify, you cannot work on it. If you can't identify, you cannot work on it. So you have to identify it, number one. Number two, how do you process it? How can you understand how we discussed about the processing? Just witness. Be a witness, let it process. And whatever is the emotion, you don't suppress it. You should not suppress any emotions. Most of the people, they try to suppress their emotions. The more you suppress the emotion, the more it will have adverse effects. So you should not suppress your emotions. Be authentic. When you are feeling sad, you are free to express your sadness. No, if you are happy, you be authentically happy. Don't suppress any of your emotions. You can express it in a healthy way. You know, in one of the workshops, I think in Vietnam, this lady asked this question. I'm always angry at my husband. What should I do? That's an emotion she's having. I'm always angry at my husband. What should I do? So I told her, you can do whatever you want. But you have to take the responsibility. You can slap him, but be ready to get the slap back. You should take the responsibility for whatever the actions. Or the healthier way, you know, this is more important. The healthier way is you express your emotions. If you're angry at somebody, you can express that, hey, I'm angry at you, I'm upset at you, I'm not happy with the way you are. You can express. By expressing, you are still letting the emotion go. So you can express it in a very healthy way. Especially between a couple, there are a lot of things they don't agree, but they don't have a healthy expression. The utensils will be flying in the kitchen, the husband will come late wantedly, and he will cancel the holiday program, and she will do some other nut. Okay. Not her, any example. So if they have a healthy expression, they can express, I'm not happy with these things. Can we sit and talk about it? So you can express your, whatever might be your emotion. You know, you are feeling jealousy on your friend. For example, you are feeling jealousy on your friend. You can hold the hands of your friend and say, actually I'm feeling jealousy. You know, let us sit and work on it. I'm feeling uncomfortable. So by expressing, there is a possibility you can really come out of that emotion. You know, when you express your emotion, the intensity reduces. Did you notice that? When you express your emotions, the intensity reduces. Then it becomes easy to work on it. So after you identify, the processing is you acknowledge, you accept, and then you express it in a very healthy way, and you let it go. Stop all the judgments. And another beautiful tool is forgive yourself. You should forgive yourself. Unless you forgive yourself, you cannot forgive others. Yes or no? But how to forgive? It's not an easy thing. Somebody has done a terrible act to you. Do you think it's easy to forgive them? No. But how to forgive others? We need to understand the depth of it. Then it becomes easy. How to forgive? Yes, forgiveness is a beautiful tool. Everybody says forgive, forgive. But inner is boiling. Outside is I forgive you. But inside it is one day.
By understanding why they are behaving like that.
Yes, in other words, yes, you are very close to answer.
Understand their point of view.
Compassion, putting yourself into their perspective.
No, they have done a terrible thing. They have done a terrible. You have to understand the situation.
You still survived, isn't it? That's
They have done a terrible thing. There is no way you can understand why they did a terrible thing. No human would do that, but he has done it. But how would you forgive? You know that.
I see myself, if I'm in this situation, I see myself, I'm more maturer, I'm more bigger, and I'm like, okay, I forgive you. They're like child to me. This is how I do.
Okay, so that is an ego aspect.
Yeah, you can say so, but this works.
No, that is based on, this is narcissism. Okay, that comes in the other chakra.
Okay.
Okay, this is narcissism.
Okay.
Okay, this is not a healthy way.
This is very important, right?
No, if they have.
That's where we get really stuck right from morning, sitting on the toilet and thinking about, she did that, why did that. It's terrible, you can't get rid of it. It takes years, honestly. It takes years. You are not like that.
You see, if you think yourself of higher and you are trying to forgive others, that is a dangerous step. Okay, that will spiral you out of your own balance.
Understanding and accepting.
No, 1 minute. Yes.
The understanding, if you are forgiving others, actually you are forgiving yourself because you are not taking that.
But it is not possible, madam, because he has done a terrible thing.
It is possible.
It is possible for you? Now, no, nothing happened to you, now you say it is possible. But in that moment, it is difficult. You see, I am trying to explain the science of it. Okay, when you are boiling inside, it becomes difficult to forgive others.
Take a correct action, like go to police station or something. Emotion get out. You can't forgive everybody. Like if crime has happened, then you have to take an action. Don't get emotionally disturbed, but yeah, take action.
See, not everybody will be as balanced as you, sir. Okay, not to worry, I'll go to the police station, give, and my job is done. No, they are boiling, they're furious. And it is coming from their past lives. The bond is so strong.
If you can go to the police station or court and judgment and all that is not the hurt we are talking about. The hurt is that is finished, it finishes you, your thought pattern completely.
Yes.
All your knowledge goes out of the window. Test, literally a test.
You are correct. You are 100% correct.
Then slap him.
Again, you face the consequence. You are going into a cyclic loop. The law of karma takes its own course.
But the emotion has come out now. I have to let it go.
Yeah, you have to let it go. But you have to let it. You can let it go in a healthier way, right? So you can let it go in a healthier way. There is always a healthier way. If you let it go in an unhealthier way, you have to reap the consequences. So you have to understand. Actually, this is a channeled message which was given to us. See, it becomes difficult to forgive. most of the time it becomes difficult to forgive. And at that moment, if you have this simple understanding, the other person has done his best. There's this understanding, the other person has done his best. What is there to forgive? He has done his best. He is a victim. He is limited in his own ways. He has done his best. So it is based on our judgments, we expect the forgiveness. But if you think in a bigger picture, he has done his best. You know what Jesus Christ said when the people are nailing him on the cross? He is a living example. His life, not a living example, his life is a perfect example to learn forgiveness. So when people were nailing him on the cross, he said, "Oh Lord, please forgive them. They don't know what they are doing." Have you read this statement?
Yes.
"Oh Lord, forgive them. They don't know what they are doing." So in other words, they are doing their best. If you can understand they are doing their best, what is there to forgive? It becomes easier to forgive. It really becomes easier to forgive the moment you understand they are doing their best. So you're understanding the bigger picture. Okay? So this message was channeled to us. So when we asked how it is, how can we forgive? It was given to you, right? It was given to her. So it was given, if you have the understanding the other person is doing his or her best, then it becomes easier for you to forgive. And once you forgive, it becomes easier to let go. Then the emotion goes. Okay? First, understanding. With that understanding, forgiving. And with that forgiving, naturally, it will go. So you simply let go. You got it? So in this second chakra, you have a lot of tools to deploy. So the processing and the integration. So the integration is this. You understand this. This is the integration part. Okay? So let us recap quickly. What is all this chakra about?
Emotion.
Emotions. And how many of you have identified with this? Almost all. Is there anybody? Is there anybody who says, "I'm perfectly all right, I'm like a flowing Ganga"? You please pass it on. Just pass it on among your friends. You can give the excess papers later to me. I will pass it on. Okay, you go on. It's on the people. And also you have to take care of these highly clairsentient qualities. If a second person, if the second chakra is in excessive, so normally they are very highly clairsentient. That means they can feel the emotions of others. They can understand the feelings of others, and the other person don't need to speak, and this person can say what they are feeling, because that emotions they can feel in their body. Okay, that is a gift actually, which is a good thing. But if you don't have the boundaries, then that becomes a problem. If you don't have the boundaries, that means you are absorbing all their trash on yourself. So you go into an emotional turmoil. So you have to be very careful. A lot of spiritual counselors or therapists, if they don't have a clear boundary, they get stuck into this problem when it comes to the second chakra. Now on this sheet, you go through the columns. The vertical columns are about chakras 1, 2, 3, 4 and up till 7. And in the horizontal rows, you have the characteristics of each chakra. Now we have discussed chakra 1 and chakra 2. I want you to gently go through chakra 1 and 2, especially the last 2 rows, excessive characters and deficient characters. We have given some examples here. You can identify if you fall into any of these categories or you identify any of this inside you. don't read as if you're reading a textbook. Just feel it, each word by word, and introspect within yourself. Does it resonate with you, what you feel about it? So the integration part of this chakra would be forgive, non-judgment, being a witness, and let go. Okay. So now I want you to take a pen and write down what are the things you have identified within you in the chakra 1 and chakra 2, and what steps you are going to take. So just on one page you write all the chakra 1 identifications. On the second page, you write the chakra 2-1, what you have identified, and also you write down how you are going to work on it. Take a moment of deep silence, and then you can start writing.